So I ordered the book off Amazon, and now I'm on my way working through it. Has 15 chapters. It's probably a 600-page book, something like that.
It's like a textbook.
It's a textbook.
Okay,
yeah.
it's a textbook.
Like
All right.
It's called like the theory of interest.
Oh gosh.
Which not an interesting theory, but it is the theory of interest. And so it's a huge book, and I'm working my way through it, and I just get to chapter 2, okay, which maybe starts around page 50 out of 600. And the intro to chapter 2, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but essentially what it says is, there aren't that many fundamental concepts in the theory of interest. And in principle, you could solve any problem with what you've already learned so far. But in the upcoming chapters, we're going to make some simplifications or special cases and look at very special situations and how you can approach that problem maybe with a faster technique or something. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, wait a minute, this is a 600-page book, and on page 50, it's like, yeah, it's really all you need to know. I'm just going to kind of bullshit from here.
Actually, we could have put this online, but we thought it'd be better if we just made a whole book about it.
It'd be harder for me to make money if I didn't write a 600-page book.
Yeah.
But you get it pretty much, right?
Yeah. That is... It's just like, what a bad way to start a book, too. Just like, hey, so you remember that, like, how we prefaced this whole thing? You learned everything you needed to know in that first beginning bit. Everything else.
Remember chapter 1 called Introduction? Yeah, that's everything.
It's like a story where they tell you the whole story in the first chapter, and then after that they're like, we'll go into some more detail, but you kind of get the gist, right?
Yeah, if you wanted the TLDR, that was chapter 1. So now I've budgeted like 2 months to prepare for this exam because I was like, the book is huge. It's like, all right, I'm ready. Let's do it.
I'm done. Let's go. Oh, that's pretty funny. Hello, and welcome to episode 33 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're your source for weekly Drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
Yeah, basically we're just regular dudes drinking irregular beers, talking about Magic the Gathering, and in particular, our various escapades on their online client, MTG Arena.
Yes, and this week is all about the Strixhaven Championship. We're going to break down the tournament and tell you all the things that happened and things, I guess, that are happening now because of it. Sure. But first, each week we both bring a beer, we drink our own, then drink each other's, rate them on a scale of bronze to mythic, and choose the best for last. So with that, Jeff, what's on tap?
All right, I brought 10 Mile Point. This is made by Manitoulin. Manitoulin's been on the show a couple of times with one beer that we really liked and one beer that we weren't so hot on. So this is kind of their chance to, the first one we had was like diamond, and the second one, because of the diamond one, we got another one, and that one was like gold. So this is their chance to redeem themselves back up to that diamond rating they started off with. I'm slightly confused because it says Pilsner. So it says 10 Mile Point Pilsner. But then down by the brewery and where the alcohol content is and stuff, it says ale.
All right.
And so,
well,
I was under the...
Starting off
my
good.
Understanding is that Pilsners and ales are different things. So I'm going to say it's a Pilsner because that's written bigger on the can than ale is.
That's probably a good guess. Good way to go.
But it's 4.5%.
Nice. I brought Tropicana from Heavy Seas Beer. It's a citrus IPA, and it's 7.1%. And it's got some sort of like a 3-point hat that's upside down with some citrus in it. I guess it kind of has like a pirate-ish theme. Heavy Seas has like a skull as like their like logo, so it's, I guess, citrus. Citrus is good for scurvy, right? Pirates. There you go.
So like a play on the name Tropicana?
Yes, it's like Tropicana. So it's kind of like grapefruity, orange, lemon, I guess. So I don't know.
I see.
Tropicana. Anyway, that's what we're going with. Anyway.
I love that. Heavy Seas, yeah. That's why.
Because it's pirates. All right. Magic news. The College Cup. Hey, remember that thing?
Of course.
If you've been playing along, it's been like the last few FNMs were the College Cup. And finally, we have crowned a winner. Jeff, would you like to announce who the winner of the College Cup is?
Yeah, like there was ever any doubt. Of course, the winning college was Witherbloom. Woohoo! Go Witherbloom.
I will say that the second best college was Silverquill, so I was close. But anyway, so if you've been playing Arena, that's why there's the Witherbloom, like, what is it, pennants up, kind of hanging around, and everybody got a Witherbloom sleeve. So yeah,
I'm just hoping this isn't the point where Dumbledore like adds a bunch of last-minute secret points to Silverquill.
Or Lorehold wins that was in last place.
Yeah, Lorehold, right? Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So that happened. Also, this week, don't forget there is the historic All Access. It's this week, June 11th. So you should go play some sweet decks with tons of mythics, maybe like Jeskai Turns and Historic.
Don't play that deck. Don't be that guy.
I mean, you might as well just play it. Just, I don't know, spoiling the lead. Jeskai Turns was huge in the tournament. So you should, I don't know, try it out. It's, it's free. Just do it.
Yeah, but I want to play in this event, and I don't want to have to play against Jeskai Turns every round. So I'm just going to, like, try to get people to play something else.
Yes, we have enough listeners to change the meta.
Our influence is that strong.
Yeah. But anyway, so if you have a brew that you are working towards, you don't have to spend any wild cards to build decks. The every card in Arena is open to you, so you can just brew away. So get ready for that this week. Don't miss out. They're really fun, actually.
Yeah, that's actually how I do recommend playing the event. Like, obviously, play the big, splashy, cool decks, even if you think you'll never get those just because it's fun. But it's also a perfect chance to, test a deck and see if you like it before committing wildcards to it.
Yeah.
Or test a brew that you've been working on, like you said, before you craft, 4 mythic rare wildcards that you'll never actually use again.
Yeah,
because
for
you realize the deck sucks in the first few games.
It's like your janky deck that you just want to try, and then you play it 3 times. You're like, wow, this either isn't fun or sucks or doesn't work. So
combo doesn't work the way I thought it was.
Yep. Whoops. So anyway, it's a great event. I'm a big fan. Do it up. Man, okay, so there were a few things that bolt my bird this week. And I might go through all of them, but one big one
I'm sure you will at some point.
But you know what really bolts my bird?
What's that?
Is that because they kind of destroyed Pro Magic, we're never going to get a spectator mode now. Is that just they're deciding, so everybody wants a spectator mode. We could have fixed these things so watching the tournaments would be better. But you know what? Instead, let's just get rid of Pro Magic and we'll never have to implement a spectator mode on Arena. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think we were ever getting spectator mode. So
I know. I guess my hopes were just up, and I was like excited for it, and I was really hoping that it would,
As long as Pro Magic was a thing, it felt like it was on the table. As long as they were continuing to run high stakes events on Arena.
Yeah. So I don't know if this exactly bolts my. Maybe it's like, now I don't have to complain about that anymore. But anyway, it would have been nice. There's always times where it'd be nice if. Watching it in a tournament, everything was perfectly synced, or there weren't really a lot of delay issues, which, to be fair, this time there weren't the same problems as we had in the past. So that's good, at least. But
yeah, the main thing I noticed this time was just that the quality's a bit low, which always happens because you're, like, streaming through a stream.
And, what we've...
going through, like, from stream to Discord to then through Twitch to us.
So everything's a little wonky sometimes, but anyway, that just kind of dashes my hopes. Also, this is another thing. Have you noticed? All right, this is bolting my bird. Actually, maybe even worse than this last one. But there was a recent update on Arena, and now any deck that you have that has any sort of colors that might not be in the actual colors just show up in the little deck box thing. You know how you're like, so I'm playing my my Rakdos deck, so it's red and black, perfect. And then I also happen to have Luris. And then they add like the white mana symbol on the deck box. I'm like, no, it's not. Don't worry about that. But the biggest...
Yeah, I was wondering when I started playing Esper Rogues, but...
Yeah, it's like, what? When did this happen?
Why are there white cards in
this
deck?
The most frustrating thing is that when you draft a deck, it just says Wooburg. Because you
it's just all 5 colors.
It's like, no, this isn't the deck I drafted. Why are you putting all the cards in my sideboard?
There's random crap in your sideboard.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not playing any of those cards. This doesn't explain what this deck is. It makes it really confusing.
Yeah.
I don't know why did they do this?
It confused the hell out of me the first draft I did. I was like, wait a minute, do I have like a white card in my main deck that I don't mean to be in there? Because
or something.
I really don't want to draw a white card in my teamer deck.
Or like, did they leave in a planes that I ended up keeping when sometimes when you finish drafting, you'll like have a white card, then you're not playing that deck, and then they just automatically add the lands.
It's like a green-white hybrid, and it stuffs in 3 planes for you.
And you're like, what?
No, I'm green.
No, I don't know. I don't need that. Anyway,
probably not green-white hybrid in this set.
Yeah, but
you know what
I know what you mean. Anyway, those are the things that bolt my bird this week. There will be many more bolts and many more.
It's like the arena client's getting like less user-friendly.
Yeah,
it's like first was the sideboard thing that I still hate.
Yeah,
so much. Where it's like I have the 7+8 sideboard breakdown, and my cards just jump around all the time, and I just want to know what's in my sideboard and how many of them, without looking at all 15 cards and counting how many, mystical disputes. I just want them all next to each other.
You know what is hard about that as well is that when you put it in the column and you can click the plus to add more cards and you click on it to make it go away. In your sideboard, it works that way until you get to 7, and then they start turning into arrows and you move them around. So it just becomes so hard to. It'll
all be working perfectly, and then I'll add in another card, and that card will jump in between my 2 Ashioks or something.
Up at the top.
Why?
I don't. Anyway, that's a bigger. This is a really long bolts bird this week. I don't need to talk about all these bad things. But I did want to ask you a question, Jeff. I have a worth a slot. I'm just going to run it by you.
Sure.
I'm kind of on the fence about this card, but maybe you can help me out. So, do you think that this card is worth a slot in a historic deck?
Historic, okay.
Right.
High bar.
I don't know if you've heard of this card before, but it's called Brainstorm. Do you know? Because it's an instant.
Could you read it to me?
Well, it's an instant, and it just a single blue.
Okay.
All right, so you draw 3 cards, and then you put 2 cards from your hand back on top of your library, in any order.
No, I don't think so, because it's not card advantage, It's you draw 3, but you spent this one, and then you put 2 back.
Yeah, but you get to look at more, so.
Yeah, without fetch lands, I think it's just terrible.
All right.
Actually.
Yeah. Okay, I can see
wouldn't
that.
play it.
Yeah, it's probably not really that great.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean, that was stronger than what my original stance was, but my original stance was more or less that.
It's pretty close.
That good.
Anyway, let's just jump right into things. Strixhaven Championship. All right.
Where the most played card was
Brainstorm.
What?
So if you didn't listen to our last episode or you didn't know this was happening, the Strixhaven Championship just finished this weekend. It was June 4th to the 6th. Basically, it's like a PT, or it's a pro tour. That's kind of what all the pros still talk about it as, so that's what it is.
Right. That's what the tournaments used to be called.
Yes, exactly. So it was a big split format tournament. It was 7 rounds of historic, and then 8 rounds of standard, and then the top 8 was historic. Mm-hmm. All right, Jeff, how should we start this? Do you want to just like?
I was just thinking like, I don't know how much time we're gonna have. We might go long on time. Let's just skip anything to do with fantasy and just not count it.
Well, no. We definitely.
I think that's the fair way to do it.
I think we should definitely
get the important stuff.
Do the important stuff, which is the fantasy, because something happened this week, a big thing.
Really?
I'm just gonna spoil it. I won this week. I couldn't believe it. I went into this last week thinking it's gonna be over. This is the last time we're doing fantasy. I'm gonna lose. I was already like picking up beers, like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to give these to Jeff. This is gonna be terrible.
Well, you can keep doing that.
I don't know about that. Now
my A game next time.
Now we're even. We are even 4-4. It's going to game 9. I'm really excited. But anyway, so I'm kind of spoiling the fun of it, but boy, did I smoke you. Whew. Just
yeah.
Feels good. Feels
My
nice.
team did not do well.
One person on your team did well. Everyone else,
correct. Two players did well.
Yeah, okay. Everyone else got to play on day 1,
Yes, a lot of my players participated in the event. That's
Yes,
what I'll say.
that is correct.
So I'll just run through my team here.
Yeah.
For the MPL, I had Reed Duke, who got one match win. That's correct, one.
One.
Very unread-like performance. He brought Gruul Adventures in Standard and Jeskai Turns in Historic. Javier Dominguez got 8 match wins, not bad. Sultimatum in Standard, Is It Phoenix, or Prismari Phoenix, whatever you want to call it, in Historic. And Andre Strosky, only 3 match wins. He brought Dimir Rogues in Standard and Is It Phoenix in Historic.
Yeah. All right. That's fine, What is that? Like 12 points? Cool.
12,
So that 12 in your MPL, that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
My first pick, I was really happy with him. It's kind of sad how things ended, but Seth Manfield went 13-2, got into the top 8, so that's 14 points altogether.
Well, you have me beat now.
Yep.
Did your other players get -2 points? Or
No, they actually... So Seth Manfield had Is It Dragons in Standard and Jeskai Control in Historic. Then Ken Yukihiro, for some reason, only played 14 matches, I guess. Couldn't really figure out why, but he went 7-7, so he got 7 more points for me. Naya Adventures in Standard and Dragonstorm in Historic, which I was pretty excited to hear he was playing Dragons because, I already liked that deck, and I picked him because I wanted him to play something crazy, and that was kind of crazy. So, but a good, another 7 points, and then William Huey Jensen 7 more points with Sultimatum in Standard and Jeskai Turns in Historic. So, big. I'm just like thwomping you. I don't know what the word is, but that feels right. Like you just got thwomped.
All right, for the Rivals League, I had Luis Scott Vargas, who brought Sultimatum in Standard, Jeskai Turns in Historic, with 2 match wins, 2 and 4, so I guess he dropped before playing the 7th match. Anyways, Yuta Takahashi was my second pick. He brought Dimir Rogues in Standard, Is It Phoenix in Historic, and he got 11 wins.
Oh, finally, okay.
Yuta.
Double digits for
the
you.
Rogues Master. Would have been all 15 wins if you'd brought Rogues in Historic as well, Yuta. Then I have Matt Sperling, brought Sultimatum in Standard, Jeskai Turns in Historic. Also went 11-4, but managed to top 8. Woohoo! And then got 3 wins in the top 8. That means 15 points for Matt. And since I had the player got the most points out of anyone, I guess that means I win.
No. But
then I had Chris Patello with Teamer Adventures in Standard, 5-color Niv Mizzet in Historic. Went 2-4, did Chris.
That's rough. Those are your 2 good players, Yuta Takahashi and Matt Sperling. Mm-hmm. And Matt, once we kind of talk about who won and all that stuff, we'll get into it. But obviously top 8'd, so that's pretty good. So Gregor Kowalski, this guy was excited to pick him last week, and he was second place in the Call-Time Championship. But this guy got Sultimatum in Standard, Jeskai Turns in Historic, went 1-4. He got 1.
Brought the right decks, it seems.
1 point. 1 point. So, I was kind of down on that, but that turned out to be the only player that didn't make day 2 on my team. So, after seeing your scores, I felt a little bit better about that. But,
yeah.
And then after that...
It feels like cheating when you have players make day 2. I don't think that should be allowed.
Because we kind of knew I was going to win after the first day. Because it was like, well, you just think...
Yeah, because I had 4 players that didn't make day 2, and you had just 1.
Yeah.
So.
It's just a lot harder when you can't score.
If you have like 1 more player than the other guy, you can hope a top 8 and then a good run in the top 8,
we'll make up for it. But
3 fewer players means you're cooked.
Yeah. Especially because I had Luis Silvato, who was Sultimatum in a Standard and Is It Phoenix in Historic, got 11 points. Also kind of tied Lost on Breakers to get into the top 8, but really excited for him. Then Riku Kumagai got 10 points with Jeskai Mutate, interesting deck, and Is It Phoenix.
Talk about that more later.
Yeah, pretty interesting. And then Mike Segrist got 8 points for me with Mono Red Aggro and Jeskai Turns. So felt pretty good going into this. I basically had it locked up. I think with the players, that wasn't coming down to anything. Meta percentage for Standard, we were both right.
Both picked Sultimatum.
Yep.
Both correct. And, people might say, you both picked the same thing. That's lame. But we were right both times, so it's hard to say, we shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because we just both knew what the two most popular decks were going to be.
So there you go. So spoiler alert, the meta percentage, the highest meta for Historic is it Phoenix, which is what we said. So we also got 2 points for that, just getting the top, but we did not get 2 points for beating the other person. However, the top performing deck for Standard, Jeff, what was your pick?
My pick was Naya Adventures, and you went double down on Sultimatum there. You went Sultimatum for this one.
I did.
Naya Adventures did better than Sultimatum, so I get 2 points for this, but neither of us picked the top deck.
Yes. So the top deck, we're going to count it as Jeskai Mutate, I think. I think technically Team or Luca had more, but there weren't as many decks that brought it, so those numbers are kind of skewed. And Jeskai Mutate, man, that did you watch those games? Well, first of all, did you know this was a deck? I did not know Jeskai Mutate was a deck.
I did. I didn't know it was a real deck. Like, I saw people posting it on Twitter, and I played against it on ladder a bunch, but I never lost to it on ladder, so...
I just never heard of it, ever.
Yeah.
Basically...
It's like the next one in a long line of target your own Goldspan Dragon combo decks.
Yeah. So basically, you have like a Goldspan Dragon, and you're putting different mutate creatures onto it, and then getting cards back from your graveyard to then bounce it, and you keep targeting the Goldspan each time to get treasure, and then you flow all the treasure, or you sack all the treasure before you return your Goldspan to your hand, and do it all over again, netting 1 mana each time, and then eventually you just kill your opponent with a Prismari command, shooting them in the face.
In practice, you don't really do the loop to win on Arena, just because of time issues. You generally tend to just make so much advantage that your opponent can't possibly win.
Yeah.
Like, you essentially loop as many times as you want, but you're going to run out of rope. So, because every loop that you just described takes like 10 plus clicks. And if you're looping Prismari command, it gets you 2 damage. And then there's a kind of thing you have to do where you reset the loop. If your Goldspan gets too much damage on it, you have to pick everything up, right? So it takes forever, but usually you can just loop the Prismari command to like wipe your opponent's board and
some other things.
Draw 7 cards and make like 12 additional mana or something.
Especially because you can end the loop with all the pieces in your hand, so you just do it again next turn.
Exactly.
Either the pieces in your hand or the ones that you need in the graveyard. So it's technically it will go infinite, but on Arena you just kind of it's weird because you just kind of do it until you start seeing the rope, and then you kind of close up and then do it again next turn.
Right. Arena's not well suited to infinite loops, and this one is a really long infinite loop.
Yes.
Like, each iteration already takes a lot of game actions.
Also to the point that I think it did so well because people didn't know what it was. Like, everyone was just talking about, like, all the commentators, a lot of the players, people on Twitter were just like, yeah, I knew it was a deck. I didn't play it because I didn't understand how it worked, and I was just like, whatever. And then a lot of people playing it were like, I don't really know how it works. And then that's what everyone said. They're just like, I don't really know how that deck works, so I just lost to it.
It's not the most intuitive, for sure, because it involves, like, bouncing your heavily mutated Goldspan Dragon back to your own hand, and then with that on the stack, you have to sack all the treasures, otherwise you don't get them. They're not worth 2, and then you just replay everything.
And so knowing which pieces to get rid of or what is important, all that kind of stuff, it seems like really complicated. And hey, if you want to play that deck in this, like, I guess that's for Historic All Access. You could play this deck in Historic All Access, but you might get smoked. But it seems just hard. I don't know. First of all, hadn't heard about it. I'd never seen a mutate deck that was Jeskai, so that was cool. It was cool, and also it felt like I was off my finger wasn't on the pulse. You know what I mean? I felt very like out of the loop when everyone's like, oh, this is the deck that's, a bunch of people brought and did really well. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was a deck. Wait.
Well, I remember that, like, so I knew about this deck because there's a guy that's been playing this, and I'm sorry, I can't remember your name right now, so if you're listening, sorry to you. Eric. His name is Eric, but I can't remember his last name.
Okay.
But he always he's been playing mutate decks for a long time, and eventually through all of these Star City Games events, and his latest iteration has been, I guess, this Jeskai Mutate deck. And then I saw on Twitter him post, sorry guys, I'm not playing Jeskai Mutate in the event because I couldn't figure out how to beat Prismari Dragons. But I know some other people are bringing it, so if they manage to figure it out, like, good luck to you guys. So then I realized, I guess there are people actually bringing this deck to the event. I thought it was just like Eric is a good player who loves his wacky decks, and he's the only guy doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it was a little more widespread than that. Yeah, I mean, I hope that you're right, that it's kind of just people didn't know how to deal with it. And there's going to be a lot of that, right? Like, what do you counter? Are you supposed to counter the gold span? Are you supposed to counter the mutate that goes on to the gold span?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are you supposed to do to fight it best? What kind of cards are best? Like, I don't know, once people start slapping
stuff onto it's like one of those things where, like, you just haven't played that match much at all, probably, and you're just like, the tempo of how this works feels strange because it's just different, which is good. I mean, but I think that's why it did so well. I don't think it's an amazing, this fantastic deck that's like, oh, that is a secret gem that's like the best. I think that if it becomes part of the once after this tournament, obviously people are going to see that and be kind of more prepared for it, and it'll go away, I think.
It's all just very weird. So this deck had a 60.7% win rate, and 15 people brought it. Whereas, as you mentioned, Teamer Luca actually did a bit better at 68.8. Holy crap, Teamer Luca. But it only had 4 decks, and we know one of them made the top 8, so that skews the percentages heavily. So we decided Jeskai Mutate's kind of the best performer here.
In either case, it doesn't really matter because we don't get any extra points for it. So we're just like, well, whatever.
Exactly.
We didn't take those.
True. Yeah. If you want the numbers, Sultai got 47.4 win rate against the metagame, which I think the worst it's ever really. I've never really seen it dip below 50.
Yeah.
And Naya Spirit, which is what I picked, got 53%.
Yeah. So they call it Naya Spirits in the MTG data, but really it's Naya Adventures. That's what we.
Yeah, it plays
the adventure package. It
double plays all adventure cards.
Yeah, exactly.
But it also has the spirit that makes 1/1s, and so they can call it that if they want. Like this deck, even the Mutate deck shouldn't really be called Mutate because it's not really in the spirit of mutating. It's just slap a Goldspan Dragon and target it with stuff.
Yeah, it's like
the game instantly. Like it's a combo.
It's like a treasure combo deck.
Right. It could easily be called Jeskai like Goldspan combo.
Yeah.
Just as easily, you know.
This is why
that would actually tell you a bit more how the deck plays.
This is why we need people to submit real names for decks. You know what I mean? Because then you could be like, oh, this is the name of the deck that I made up. If you play a version of it, that's what it's called. You know.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting debate, and I see both sides. I'm more like, I think there's a lot more whimsy in just having fun names.
Yeah.
And I would prefer that, but I also understand that some people will bring inappropriate names, and you don't want to allow that really either.
Exactly. So that might be something that we talk about in the future. We won't get into it today, but you may have already kind of heard our feelings about it. Anyway, let's just like lock up this fantasy thing because it's been going on a little bit longer than I thought.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll have more to say about Jeskai Mutate anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So like we said before, the meta percentage for Historic was Phoenix was the highest, and then the top performing Historic deck was something that we didn't choose.
Right. So I took a shot on Tainted Pact still being good. And missed wildly. Nobody even really brought Tainted Pact.
Hey, Brian Braun-Duin brought Tainted Pact. So.
Right. Yes, he did. And I think one other player, maybe. I think there were 2 Pact players. And you took Jeskai Control, which was the 3rd most popular deck, I believe.
Or the 3rd most highest performing deck. So the highest.
Well, it was also 3rd most popular, I think.
Oh yes, it was. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Sorry. But as far as the top performing deck, I did beat you. Jeskai Control is actually on the MTG data graphic because enough people brought it that it could do well.
You beat me by 51.4% to question mark.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I won by. However, the top performing deck was Jeskai Turns, which is the one we were talking about before, 61.4%.
Wowza.
It was everywhere, all over the top 8. I think it was like 15% of the meta or something like that. but that was the top 8. That was it was all over the place. I think we're gonna get a little bit more into that possibly a little bit later. But totally. it was everywhere.
So that performance left me 48 points for me.
And I got 67. Boom!
Ouch. I got thwomped.
You got thwomped.
Thwomped.
But anyway, so it is good news because then we get one more week. We get the final showdown between who's going to get the weird 2-4.
Decided to take a dive here,
Yeah, it feels like either it was this week or some weeks. There have been times I really felt like I wasn't supposed to win and something happened, but whatever. I'll take the wins where I can get them because I need all the help I can get. But so we will have the final showdown. That'll be at the beginning of July, I believe. It's July 4th weekend is the last league weekend. So we will be doing it up, picking our teams, and someone will be awarded the weird 2-4 of beer.
Can't
wait. As always, we have the best possible team you could have for fantasy sports, Magic Pro League.
This team thwomped both of us.
It did. Wow. Do you want to read the MPL?
Sure. So on the best possible team, your MPL choices would have been Seth Manfield with 14 points, Raphael Levy with 13 points, and then either Martin Yuza or Ray Sato. Both got 11 points.
Yes. And then for the rivals, you would need Matt Sperling, who got 15 points, which you had. Good job.
Woohoo. Go Matt.
You could have had Yuta Takahashi with 11, which you also had. Louis Salvato, who I had. And then Noah Ma, who I picked the first time we played fantasy, and he did not do very well. But I was really happy to see him doing exceptional in this one. Didn't make the top 8 on breakers, but that's awesome. It's cool to see. So you would have had to have those 4 exact rivals players to do that.
In standard, you would have picked Sultimatum as your top performing deck, and as your top meta percentage deck. And Jeskai Mutate as your top performing deck.
And then historic would have been Is It Phoenix, like we said before, and Jeskai Turns. And for all of those, you would have gotten 4 points each because you would have feasibly beaten the other person and had the highest. You would have picked the highest one.
Right.
Yes.
So this is assuming your opponent picked pretty badly. If you did all that, you would have got 102 points.
Whew. So
it's a little better than my 48 points.
Just a little bit. But also it's significantly better than my 67, which makes me feel like, I was like, man, I really did well. And then the best team still beat me so hard. So
I think in these championship huge tournaments, the best team is always going to really, really destroy us.
Yeah.
Just
because you don't have a chance at the end to my player could do a little bit better. It's like, no, you didn't make the top 8, you didn't make day 2, you're screwed.
And there's just so many more wins that will go throughout the MPL and Rivals League players because they're not playing each other all the time.
Exactly.
So the difference between the best performing players and the worst performing players is 15-1.
Exactly.
Whereas in a league weekend, you'll have so many more 7 and 8s.
And those kinds of things that are really, really
even
close.
The best possible team won't, and the best players will be 10-11. So then the best possible team won't beat you by that much.
Exactly. So it is a little bit different. You don't have as many team kills on the championships, but it goes to show, as you know, Zach's win championships. And so
I knew you were going to say it. Too.
I won the championship. Who could have guessed that? Maybe I've been saying that the whole time. Really exciting stuff.
I let you win them to pop back into the event. The folks at home need a bit of a raise.
I see. The thing is, I don't know if it's true or not. It could be true. It could not be true. But I don't know if you would know enough to pick players that are good but do badly beforehand. I don't know how you would do that. So
I actually texted Andre. I was like, "Hey, Andre, you should watch the soccer game instead of playing in the event."
Yeah. So I sent this to Jeff. I think it was the day before, the day of the tournament. On Twitter, Andre Strosky had a tweet just saying, "Oh, sweet. So, I'm already qualified for Worlds and all that, so I'm going to be watching the soccer game while playing some Magic today."
Yeah.
And so I started to Jeff being like, he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care at all. This is going to be great. And he ended up doing better than Reed Duke, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I still just it's still Andre Strosky, one of the best players in the world, and a known Dimir Rogues pilot playing Dimir Rogues. So I think even this score represents some bad luck on Andre's side.
Yeah. So
Is it Phoenix and Dimir Rogues are definitely decks he knows how to play really well. So even if he didn't practice that much.
Yeah, he knows how to play like every deck really well. So
yeah, that's true.
That is how it goes.
So I just had a quick question for you. I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, but I was just thinking about it while we were talking about the meta percentage and performing decks.
Yeah.
It seems like lots of people brought Sultimatum and Jeskai Turns, and a bunch of people brought Jeskai Mutate and Is It Phoenix? And I was just curious, did anyone bring Jeskai Mutate and Jeskai Turns? Just hit the nail right on the head with the two best decks.
I actually don't know, but let me. Oh, I don't have an easy way to check. I did.
That's I was gonna check it, but I didn't know how to.
There's
check
not
that.
a really easy way to do that. I did want to mention. I apologize. Last week I had mentioned. The best way to keep track of the scores and everything was just from Magic Esports Twitter. That's false. That's not the best way. The championships are all run through MTG Melee. They have all the scores there and everything you need to know.
And it's updated constantly.
Yeah, so
you can see what matches are in progress and stuff.
Now, I don't know why Magic Esports doesn't tell you that and send you a link and say, hey, this is the best way to do it, and give MTG Melee a big, help. But that is the 100% best way to find all those things.
Yeah, now that there's only like one more.
Yeah.
Actually, no more.
There's no more. Are they going to do the gauntlets through these? I don't know. Like, maybe?
I couldn't say. Are they still even doing the gauntlets?
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's because the gauntlets are what gets you into Worlds, and it says where you're going to be for next year. And then next year, the only reason all they're doing are the championships and Worlds is all that's happening. There's no league weekends or gauntlets next year, but they still have technically the MPLs there. They're just only playing Pro Tours and doing nothing else.
Anyways, did you get a chance to watch much of this event? Like, would you?
I did. So I watched a good chunk of day 2, and then I was on work on Sunday for the top 8, but I was listening to it on my headphones. So I knew enough about it that I had seen a lot of the decks, so I could kind of keep track with just the commentators explaining what was happening. And for the most part, I just wanted to see which Jeskai deck was going to win, basically.
Hey man, there were 2 Prismari decks up there too.
Were they even Prismari? They're just Is It Phoenix, right? So they're not technically. I would still consider them Is It because that was a deck before Prismari was a thing.
But I don't know. They play
Prismari Command.
No, they don't usually play that. But they play the other one, Expressive Iteration.
Oh, Expressive Iteration. You're right.
Usually full 4X of those bad boys.
Yeah, Seth was talking about how he's playing 8 copies of Expressive Iteration, and it feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got to watch most of it too. I did my usual thing where I let it get ahead of me, and then I watched the VODs so that there's a lot of downtime and stuff I don't care about in the broadcasts. And there's it's kind of funny. It's a 9-hour VOD, but you can watch all of the Magic that you actually want in like an hour and a half. So 2 hours maybe. So you could actually watch the whole event, by just,
skipping
at night, watch an hour, and by the end of the week, you've seen everything if you wanted to do it that way. Mm-hmm. That's most of what I did, and I watched most of... I'd say I watched most of it, more than half. And then I started watching the top 8, and once it became all Jeskai turns, I actually stopped watching.
Yeah.
Actually, if I'm being honest, it was late at night, and I fell asleep when it became like a Jeskai turns mirror match.
Really? When you were... when you went back and were watching it?
Right, I was watching the VOD of the top 8
Gotcha.
at night, and I was just lying on the couch, and I just totally fell asleep, and I woke up at like 3 in the morning. I was like, wait, what's going on? Had to stumble into the bed and close this Magic broadcast that's still going.
Yeah. Yeah,
right around that Jeskai Turns mirror match, I must have blanked somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, just around that Jeskai, yeah, for sure.
Whichever, do you remember it, the Jeskai Turns mirror?
Yeah, it was really specific to only 2 people having that. and it wasn't just the entire top 8. We're gonna run through the top 8 after the break, but that leads me to Jeff. How's your beer doing?
It's empty.
Hey, well, let's take a beer break and then get to the top 8.
Okay. Tropicana.
All right, 10 Mile Point Pilsner, I guess.
Pilsner and or ale. It's definitely a Pilsner.
Maybe it'll live up to its expectation. I love that I can say that, which could mean a bad thing or a good thing.
That's right.
Does it live up to the good expectation or the bad expectation?
Oh, no, it's mediocre. What are we going to do now?
It's right in the middle. Alrighty. Getting back into it, we were just talking about the top 8. Jeff, do you have them in front of you? Do you want me to read the top 8?
I do. I know what the 5 decks were. Let me see if I could do this.
All right.
So Sam Pardee.
Yes.
Was on Jeskai Turns. John Girardot.
Mm-hmm.
Also Jeskai Turns. Let's see. There was Matt Sperling.
Mm-hmm.
There was Seth Manfield.
Mm-hmm.
There was Logan Nettles.
Mm-hmm.
There was Matty Kiesma,
yeah.
David Ingles, and who am I missing?
Oh, he's a good pick too.
Raphael Levy.
There you go.
Oh.
So that is our top 8.
In no particular order. In the order that Jeff could remember them
Yes.
in, which did happen to be first, then second, then arbitrary.
Yeah, so Jeff kind of spoiled it right there. Sam Pardee won the whole tournament. Great job, Sam. Congratulations.
Congrats, Sam.
Yeah.
The awesome thing about that, too, is that Sam kind of barely snuck into the top 8. He had a winning in to get to 11-4, but it wasn't really winning in because even 11-4, as we saw, isn't good enough to guarantee a top 8.
Yeah. So he was
and he snuck right into 8th place.
Mm-hmm. Snuck into 8th place and just busted his way through.
Oh yeah, it was just 2-0-U, 2-0-U, 2-1-U.
Yeah.
All right, let's see it.
He just went through the top bracket. So he beat Logan Nettles, and then he beat David Inglis, and then he beat John Girardot, and then had to play John Girardot again for the finals, and ended up, sweeping that with a 2-0 match win.
And the crazy thing is that Sam is really good friends with Matt Nass.
Oh,
and the
right.
person he had to play in the final round to get 11-4 was Matt Nass. They were both 10-4,
Mm-hmm.
and would have to eliminate their friends to get a chance to go to the top 8. Sam managed to win with mono red against Matt's Sultimatum and squeaked in right at 8th place. See, Sam did what I usually do, which is come up with a tied for 8th place record, but Sam decided to actually get 8th place instead of getting 9th place, which is usually my strategy.
Mr. 9th place. Oh. I would like to note, it is pretty cool that there were 2 undefeated players at the end of day 1. Those players were Seth Manfield and Logan Nettles, and both of them made it to the top 8, which is quite exciting. Just because, I was watching Seth, obviously, very closely, because he just had an amazing start. And then his first match of day 2, I think he played Matt Sperling and lost, and I was like, well, okay, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
They both ended up getting to the top 8, so that was kind of fun. Having both Jeff and I have players in the top 8 was fun to watch. And what? Sorry.
My player won in the head-to-head. So.
Yeah. So they played.
That should be worth exactly 20 additional points.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, they both lost their first match and then got paired up against each other in the lower bracket, and Matt Sperling did beat Seth Manfield.
Yeah, I just mean in the head-to-head. We should have a rule that you get 20 points if your player beats the other team's player in a head-to-head in the top 8. So that would make it 68-67 for me if we instituted that rule. But
I think 19 is no. Let's do 18. 18 is a good amount.
18, I'll take it. Yeah. So really cool. Logan Nettles was someone I was rooting for as well, even though he wasn't on my team because he's unpickable as a challenger.
Mm-hmm.
But he was playing Naya Adventures, which is a deck that I picked to be the best performing deck. So he had a lot to do with that deck's positive win rate. And also, I like to cheer for people who have beaten me in competitive events, and Logan Nettles is one of those people. So I was like, yes, go Logan. It makes me feel less bad about losing to you if you top 8 a huge event like
so this. Logan Nettles, he is Reed Duke's cousin. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So he was I think I watched an interview with him, and he was talking about how he hadn't been playing Historic really at all, and he mainly is playing like modern Magic Online, and he won a kind of a qualifier that got him into this tournament through that. And so he's like, okay, well, I should start playing Arena, which is hilarious to see. Oh, this guy who doesn't play Arena very often gets to win this or get really close to, he top 8s this Arena tournament. And but anyway, he was trying to figure out what to do in Historic, and he's like, oh, well, I'll just ask my cousin Reed. And then Reed brought him in, and he was part of their team, and he had just talked a little bit about how it was really fun to be part of that, and how quickly everyone, kind of adopted him into the group, and he got to be on the Discord stuff and work with them. So that's how he got up to speed with Historic, and just very, very cool. Awesome story there. And
definitely, yeah.
However, Jeff, would you like to talk about the top 8 decks that we got to see?
Yeah, so 5 of the players in the top 8 were on Jeskai turns. So this is the deck we've been talking about, the best performing deck in Historic for the event, and this kind of shows you why it had such crazy numbers. 5 of those players made it to the top 8. 2 players were on Is It Phoenix, and 1 Jeskai Control.
Yeah, Seth Manfield.
Seth Manfield was on Jeskai Control. David Ingles and Matti Quizma were the 2 players on Is It Phoenix, and they actually tested together. They both brought Is It Phoenix and Jeskai Mutate, and both managed to top 8 with those 2 choices. And everyone else was on Jeskai turns.
Yeah. And also, going through the bracket, Jeskai turns ended up being the top 4 even.
Yeah, exactly.
So at a certain point of the top 8, all it was Jeskai turns after that. So it was...
Yeah, that's when I fell asleep.
Yes. But it was, I was just listening in my headphones, and it was difficult to remember who everybody was, because it was just like, oh, okay, which a lot of the cards were kind of the same. Everyone is playing Brainstorm. Every single person is playing 4 copies of Brainstorm in their deck. And
yeah, and
it's just like
a lot of copies of Expressive Iteration flying around.
Yeah.
Memory lapses were all over the place.
Prismari Command, Mystical Dispute. It's like, there was just a lot, which is fine. It was kind of fun. Somebody had mentioned that all of their country's flags encapsulate Jeskai. So it's red, white, and blue. The only one that's missing red is Matti Quizma, I believe.
In Finland is blue-white.
Yes. But everyone else was either from the United States or from France. So it was kind of funny to be like, hey, it's just Jeskai, top 8. Hey, everybody's Jeskai.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. I did.
Although Matty wasn't on Jeskai, so maybe that's why he didn't play Azorius, but
exactly, exactly. So that was. I would normally say that was really interesting, but it was kind of a bummer. Like, we had spent the whole episode last week talking about how exciting Historic was and how there were all these different decks, and we were excited to see what happened, and it all came up Jeskai. Like.
But you know what's hilarious about that is we were like, I'm glad the top 8 is Historic because Standard is a bit solved.
Yeah.
If we took those top 8 players and looked at what Standard decks they brought to the event, this is what the top 8 would have looked like if it had been Standard. 1 Naya Adventures, 1 Gruul Adventures, 1 Teamer Luca, 1 Prismari Dragons, 1 Sultimatum, 1 Mono Red Aggro, and 2 Jeskai Mutate, a brand new deck to the format. So straight 1s down to a 2 of a brand new deck. That would have been amazing.
That would have been crazy. What a cool top 8, man.
Yeah. Instead, it's just like all blue-red all the time.
Yeah. So, like, I don't want to complain about it too much. I do want to say this was hilarious. So, top 8's on Sunday. It's all Jeskai. All people are talking about, if I don't ever, this is a random thing, but if I could never hear Cedric Phillips say we're in a Steam Vents world ever again, that would be amazing. Because it was just like, him just mentioning, oh, well, it's all Steam vents, and Steam vents is everywhere, and everything is Steam vents, and it was just like, Cedric, we get it. It's fine. Like,
yes. If I get reminded that Steam vents was the most played land one more time, I swear to God.
If you, or just like, I just don't think it's relevant information. It's not that exciting. There's not new. It's just you saying it again. So that aside, which is totally fine, but
there are 32 copies of Steam vents though, right, in the top 8.
Yeah. But anyway, on Arena, the daily deals for the day were all Golgari cards. It was.
I didn't know which way it was gonna go because I didn't see them. I was like, was it like a promo Steam vents?
No.
Or they leaned into it? Or was it?
It was like all
no
Golgari cards. It was like you could get the sleeve from one of the secret layers, like the graveyard secret layer. It was like one of the dredge cards.
They're like, nobody's gonna buy these. We need to
discount them because nobody wants any of these Golgari cards. And I was laughing. I was like, oh, this is so funny.
That hurts. They could have picked a different guild,
Yeah. But yeah, there were 0 swamps and 0 forests.
Could have been Celestia
in the top 8.
Could have been Prismar or Silver Quill.
Just
They could have harped on one of those.
No, it was pretty funny. I'm assuming it was intentional because it was really cheeky to me, but.
Oh, I guess if Jeskai is the most popular, it's funniest to do Golgari because it's no overlap.
Well, just because there were no Golgari cards that day, it was just like.
Yeah.
Oh God! So
I thought it was just like not is it like so no red or blue, but now I'm realizing Jeskai was the most popular, so it's funniest to do green black.
Exactly.
Just no green black.
0 copies. So anyway,
took a tough hit. Did the Thoughtseize gang this weekend, but we're ready to bounce back.
Anyway, I think it was a great championship. It was some cool stories. I would say sorry to Autumn Burchett, who got a game loss because their internet went out. Oh, it was a match loss, actually, yeah.
It was a match loss, yeah.
And so she just was screwed. And it's one of those things with online tournaments. It just really sucks.
You know what the craziest thing about that, though, is that Autumn hadn't lost a historic match yet. And that was historic.
Yeah.
With her deck choice, she went 12-1 in games in historic. She lost 1 game of historic and won the other 12. And she brought the reason it's cool, she brought 5-color Niv Mizzet.
Oh yes.
And she played Is It Phoenix every round. So I guess she demonstrated that she understands how to beat Is It Phoenix with her 5-color Niv Mizzet deck. She didn't even lose it. She barely lost a game to them.
Yeah, that's like shitty. And so
unfortunately, she brought like blue-white Yorion in standard. So
not a great standard choice. And she had mentioned she didn't really like it very much. But anyway, so that was just kind of some of those stories that happened over the weekend that were bummers. But overall, I think it was a good tournament. Happy Sam won it all. It is indeed party time. But
party time.
There is the one thing. So with Jeskai Turns, there was a big talk of the tournament, and this is I think important for anyone who's playing these decks or playing against them or anything like that. There do seem to be 2 different versions that were harped on kind of immensely, and it's just the there are little 1-ofs and 2-ofs that are like kind of the numbers are different. Either you play 3 Velomachus, you play 2 or whatever, but the sideboard plan of Commence the Endgame versus Nezahal, the Primal Tide.
Yeah.
So the commentators were talking the whole time how strong Nezahal is, and that's the card you want in the matchup, and it's the best, and it beats everything, and it's so good. But the players that made the top were not played. There are no Nezahals in their decks. They were all playing Commence the Endgame.
Yeah, part of that is that the commentators are friends with the guys that brought the Nezahal. That was like LSV's team that brought the Nezahal innovation, and so Marshall would have been talking to them a lot before the event. So obviously they think Nezahal is correct. So that would influence what Marshall, who's one of the commentators, would probably think. My experience was that every time somebody sided in Nezahal or Nezahal was a part of the game, it looked good, and then that player lost. every time.
It's just
It
like,
was actually a
how
really
do you...
great match where Kenji Igashira beat a resolved Nezahal with some really cool play where he attacked into it with a Gear Hulk and then put Prismari Command to deal 2 damage to it on the stack before damage. So that now if you want, either we trade because 2 damage is on it, or
you discard.
You have to exile it before damage and I get to keep my Gear Hulk. And that play essentially won him the game because he had an active Teferi going. So yeah, I basically put the opponent in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, which I thought was a really heads-up play from Kenji. Kenji was on the Torrential Gear Hulk Jeskai control deck, which actually was the only deck that did well against Jeskai turns. It beat the crap out of it, though.
Yeah.
It had like, what, an 80-something% win rate? Let me check. 83.3% win rate did Jeskai, the Jeskai Gear Hulk version of control against turns. That makes sense to me. They're both trying to do like busted Magma Opus things, but one is more controlling, so it's going to have more say about who resolves what, while the other one is better against the general field. That checks out.
It's kind of sad to see Seth Manfield was not playing that version of the deck. I was kind of hoping that he had that. It could easily be a reason why he did not do well in the top 8 at all. Was kind of not doing.
Do you know why though?
I don't know why. Do you know why?
Because the version with Torrential Gear Hulk does not want to play excessive.
Oh, expressive iteration?
Expressive iteration, because you can't get it back with Gear Hulk. So, because it's a sorcery. And Seth wanted to play 8 copies of expressive iteration, so...
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
That's my guess. He didn't say that, but
well, he did,
I know how much he highly regards that card. If you watched him play, he would throw counters at that card. You know, both players have like 7 mana. They're holding up counter spells for a big turn. Opponent plays expressive iterations. Seth would snap off a counter spell, like no question.
And that was an interesting heads-up play throughout the tournament, seeing who was countering brainstorms and all those kinds of things, how aggressive they were, and you'd watch different matches, and it is kind of those master classes of oh, Sam seems to be playing a normal. It seems like he's like laid back and he's waiting for the big stuff to counter, and then one game it's like counter any card that's giving them any advantage, just crush them. And it was pretty interesting. These aren't decks that I normally play, so it is interesting for me to watch people play these, because there's so much I can learn from them.
Yeah, and I think it'll help people, if you have the mentality of, oh, there's just nothing I could do against these stupid decks and they're broken. It's like, watch this. Did you consider countering the brainstorm? You probably just let it resolve without thinking about it. Or, and this will help you identify the types of things that you're doing without thinking about it. Like when I watched Arne play Rogues last time, I realized there was a ton of stuff that I was just running out Rogues just because I felt like that was just automatically the right thing to do, and I would consistently see Arne just play nothing despite having multiple Rogues to run
just
out.
over and over again. And that was like a deck
kind of made me realize like I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. And that was a deck I played Rogues a lot, and I felt like I knew it pretty well. And then I'm watching him play, I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. And like this, like you're saying, this time I might not think to blow my only counter spell in my hand on the brainstorm, but I'm just letting it resolve without even thinking. Maybe I think about it and decide that's the wrong decision, but I should at least consider it.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. Also, just seeing in that deck how important the tokens are. So making sure that they don't have any tokens for their
Indomitable creativity. Which I gotta say, like, the only part of this deck that I like is that card is now like, on the highest stage.
Yeah,
I've always thought that was a cool card.
I think it's super cool, and I think that overall, if you don't know the deck, I guess we've been talking about it a ton, but basically you make a token somehow, either an artifact or a creature. You use Indomitable Creativity to sacrifice it and then go through it to get the only creature in your deck, which is Velomachus Lorehold. You attack with it. It hopefully finds you an extra turn spell. Then you make turns after turns. You use it to get Mizzix's Mastery to play the extra turn spell again, and you do it over and over and over again until you win.
Right.
which is a sweet plan, which is so sweet.
Well, okay, I do want to also say there is one other thing I like about this deck, which is when Velomachus Lorehold was spoiled, this is what we said you would do with it. Is you would, I don't think we mentioned Indomitable Creativity in particular, but Transmogrify is the
that's what we had mentioned.
The standard version. You would Transmogrify into this, and then I think we even mentioned, and there's a new 5 mana spell in Historic that takes an extra turn. That is exactly what you want to hit.
Yeah. Which, because also you're smacking people in the face with a 5/5.
So I like that it proved us right that dragon was indeed pretty cool.
I also think it's pretty cool that the sideboard plan against the other player is always to take out the combo immediately.
Yeah, they always sideboard into a control deck with sharks and stuff.
Yeah.
And if that sounds weird to you, that's actually kind of a common thing in competitive Magic, is that game 1, everybody is just hyper linear, like as linear as you can get. And then game 2 and 3, all interaction. So games 2 and 3 are really slow. And the idea of a deck like this is, okay, maybe I'm not as good a control deck as some other control decks might be in the post board, but my game plan is to give myself like a 75% game 1, steal it, and then even though I'm not the best control deck in the room, I'm just going to have to win one game because I kind of stole a victory with my Mizzix Mastery nonsense in game 1.
Which to me is new, so that was kind of exciting to see that game plan. And it would have been interesting if people did some shenanigans where they kept in their combo, and I don't know if anyone would have, I don't know the reasons why you would or would not do that exactly, but it would have been interesting if people were like, all right, I take out all my fries and all the things that kill the Velomachus because they're taking out their combo, and then you keep the combo in and do it again. Obviously, in the top 8, it's a little rough.
Yeah.
You don't really want to just do that. Maybe somebody did it earlier.
Play some mind games.
Yeah, not too many mind games, but anyway, that's kind of our talk about the top 8. But I did want to kind of pivot and talk about what happened afterwards. So,
well, actually, the one thing I wanted to mention that we didn't, I don't think, about the top 8 is that the past few events, we've seen, MPL players do really well, Rivals players do really well and stuff. But this top 8 was 6 challengers, right?
Yeah.
And the finals was 2 challengers.
And the 2 previous times before that, it was an MPL player and a challenger, and then it was a Rivals player and a challenger.
Yeah.
And so
now it's a challenger
and a challenger. Yeah.
So yeah, challengers have won 3 times in a row, but it feels like, this event was the best, even though if you look at the win rates, the MPL players still had a massive win rate against the field, and then Rivals had the second best win rate, and then the challengers had the worst win rate. The weird thing about that, though, is that I noticed that challengers did better against MPL players than Rivals players did, which was the only percentage that, stuck out as being strange. But yeah, this is the first time I think we've seen a challenger v challenger final, which was cool.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. But that's basically what we have to say about the top 8. I do want to pivot to talk about what happened after the tournament and what people are talking about, which is basically, do we have any bans to hand out?
Yeah, so this happens every time, right? Like, if you put a bunch of decks in the top 8, everyone's going to call for a ban immediately. The interesting thing about Twitter is that the pros kind of get to weigh in. The ones who got into that top 8 get to say that something is too good. Excuse me. So I guess the question is Jeskai Turns the new best deck in Historic? Is it too good to beat? And if so, which cards should we get rid of?
The immediate thing that people have talked about is, hey, there were 4 copies of Brainstorm in every single one of the top 8 decks. Brainstorm's the obvious, should this be part of Historic? It's a Mystical Archive, so when they announced they were doing Mystical Archives, they had mentioned that they were going to put these out into the field and be very quick to kind of cut some ties, even though that's what they said. That's not exactly what's happened so far, because the last banning was not the Mystical Archive card. It was the card that won the game off of it.
But I think, they've at least been proven somewhat right that banning was enough to host that deck.
That's true. Or at least have people not want to play it for this event.
Right, maybe it was just too close to figure it out.
Yeah,
Too soon, I mean, to figure it out.
So the things are kind of like people are calling for bans of the biggest cards from Mystical Archives, which is like Brainstorm, Faithless Looting, Memory Lapse, Time Warp. These are kind of like some of the biggest ones that are, hey, these cards are doing a ton of stuff. They're all over the place in this tournament. But then there's another side of people that are kind of saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't have any of these Mystical Archive cards in Historic. Should they have been put in at all? Which that's a very aggressive argument, and I don't really agree with that one. I think it's really, I've loved having them here, and it's been fun to be able to play with them. I don't think an overhaul of getting rid of all the Mystical Archive cards is the right decision.
Is it Phoenix such a problem without Brainstorm? You know, is it even a problem now? It didn't even do that well win rate wise. It's just the most popular deck. But if we get rid of all of Mystical Archives, there's no Faithless Looting. You cannot play Is It Phoenix?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so we just kill that deck, even though it may not have been a problem. And the deck probably could adapt and still be a deck without Brainstorm, but it can't be a deck without Faithless Looting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm always biased in these things because for me, it's like when someone says this is an unbeatable deck, I kind of regard that as a challenge, and I want it to be not true, and I want to try to prove it's not true, kind of thing. So I tend to lean towards, stop complaining about it and hoping it gets banned and just try to figure out how to beat it. And I personally don't think this Jeskai Turns deck is too good. Whether Brainstorm is too good or not, I mean, that's a different question. It means what do you want the format to be about is the question you have to answer. But as far as the Jeskai Turns deck, like, it doesn't even really look like a deck to me. It's just like a whole bunch of random combos slapped together in one deck to be as linear as possible. It kind of reads really weirdly on paper. It's like, okay, so I have the like Magma Opus Mizzix Mastery combo, but then I have the Transmogrify Velomachus Lorehold combo, and I'm hoping that hits my Time Warps. It just feels like, what the hell? This is like 20 cards dedicated to weird combos.
Yeah, but I think that it does look weird. I agree with you in that sense, but I do think that the deck has a much more flexibility than some other combo-y decks because you have so many different avenues to go down. You're like, all right, well, I can play the Prismari command because I'm trying to get a treasure, so I can use Indomitable Creativity with that. However, I could also use it to blow up some other things, or I can dump cards into the yard, like the Time Warp I want. When I eventually get Velomachus onto the battlefield, if I have Brainstorm in my hand with a Time Warp or Mizzix Mastery with a Time Warp in the graveyard, I can assure that I will hit the card I want to hit because I can Brainstorm while the trigger's on the stack and put the Time Warp or the Mizzix Mastery on the top of the deck and do it that way. Also, if I run out of Time Warps and they're not there, I can end up using the Mizzix Mastery with the Magma Opus thing. So I do think it is interesting that it feels very flexible, and there's a lot of different avenues you could go down to win, which makes it, to me, an interesting deck, and I don't know if it needs to be killed. I don't know if it's super, super powerful, and could you take out Brainstorm and it still be a deck?
It's just so clunky, you can look at all its different game plans, like you're saying, but all of them are like resolve an expensive sorcery.
Yeah, which I think is awesome. you know?
And so I'm saying, how good can that possibly be? Like, to me, a deck like that just can't possibly be too good for the format. Like, I don't think anyone would ever say Sultimatum is too good. It can be the best deck, sure, but it can never be too good, because it's like, they have to resolve a 7-mana sorcery, man. Like, there are ways to take advantage of that. Like, off the top of my head, if I'm looking at this deck, I'm asking myself, can this deck ever beat Necromentia? If I play Necromentia and I take Time Warp out of your deck, can you ever beat me? I don't think you can. You can like slap a giant dragon down that gets you a free Brainstorm. All right, kill that. You can deal 4 damage to me, draw 2 cards, and make a 4/4. You're gonna have to do that a lot of times to actually win the game. You know what I mean? Like, you actually don't have a win con if I do that.
Yeah, I think at that point...
And I can also take Velomachus out of your deck instead, and now you have a whole bunch of cards that do literally nothing.
That's probably
not
the better...
not hitting anything.
Yeah, that's probably the better one. because you can make them take.
I would take Time Warp first, and then I would take the Velomachus with the second one. Because you can beat a Velomachus. It's just a 5/5 that gets a free spell.
Yeah.
Which sounds crazy, but in Historic, it's not that crazy.
But also you can beat a Time Warp that just does nothing. Right? It's just like, oh, sure.
Well, it's hard to beat, like, make a 4/4 with Magma Opus and then Time Warp 3 times. You know, like, that's a reasonable way that you lose.
Mm-hmm.
Once you take Time Warp out of the deck, the only way you reasonably lose is if they overload Mythic's Mastery.
Yeah.
And so now we're talking, you know, the Sultimatum territory where it's like they have a janky control deck that they have to resolve an 8-mana sorcery, which you could still lose to, but it's like, I don't know, it feels pretty weak by historic standards.
Yes. I think, like...
And so that'd be the first place I go, is like, you have no defense against this kind of spell.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of them. There's Necromentia, there's Unmoored Ego, whatever you want. These spells exist.
Yeah, all the ones that just go... that is true. I mean, so it will be interesting because that's going to be a card that, you know, has to be in rotation. Those types of cards where you're like, all right, well, I need something to pull the key piece out.
But this is why those cards exist as safety valves against stupid combo decks.
Mm-hmm. So once again, like we've said, if they give us the pieces to combat the problem before we have the problem, that's always a good thing because you can find them. That's fun. Though
Autumn, go ahead.
I was just going to say, though I do think that, you know, Brainstorm in this deck, does Brainstorm make this deck a deck? I don't think so, right?
Oh,
no.
I actually think it... Well, so Brainstorm makes this deck resilient to Thoughtseize, because otherwise this deck would also fold immediately to Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
Because you just take the Mythic's Mastery or
the whatever.
Yeah, whatever the good card is, right? It's also super weird to me, by the way, that Mythic's Mastery and Indomitable Creativity is a non-bow, because the X would be 0. Mm-hmm. But it's like, so it's like, I guess it's enough better than Transmogrify, but like it doesn't play well. This is what I mean by it just looks like a pile of random.
Well, the reason they don't want Transmogrify is because they want to do it off of artifacts, right? Not just the dwarf
totally.
tokens.
And also sometimes you need to do it for X equals 2 in order to guarantee that it works.
Or also get rid of other people's stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes you actually do it X equals 2 and you target their Graph Digger's Cage.
Mm-hmm.
And so you blow up their cage, give them something, and then you get Velomachus. But I actually think without Brainstorm that you'd see a lot more Thoughtseize decks just beating the crap out of this. With Brainstorm, Thoughtseize players have to adapt a bit. You can't just turn one Thoughtseize on a whim anymore if they have a blue mana. And I think that's a little bit of, you know, people are like, oh, Brainstorm counters Thoughtseize. It's like, not really. You just can't Thoughtseize as liberally as you used to. Mm-hmm. You can't just slap it down whenever you want. You do have to think about their turn progression. What are they trying to do? When are they trying to make their move? Mm-hmm. And hit them right then so that the Brainstorm is awkward.
Yeah.
But I think what makes it is Prismari Command, because otherwise, like I was saying, you just kind of Graph Digger's Cage them out of it. Because it stops everything they're trying to do, other than take an extra turn. But it stops...
all the free spells off the top and in the graveyard and all that stuff.
Right. It stops the Velomachus coming out of the deck, and it stops the Mythic's Mastery targeting stuff in the graveyard.
And it stops the Velomachus just like hard cast, play a card from your deck. You can't do that either. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Autumn actually wrote about this a bit in her... She was describing her Niv Mizzet deck, and she has Raf Capuchin in the sideboard, which is like a 4-mana... I'm never going to remember the stats. Like a 3/4 flyer or something. But it says you may cast historic spells as though they had flash. Mm-hmm. And he himself has flash. And she was saying what she does is she puts in Raf and then flashes in Graph Digger's Cage at instant speed to stop their deck. Because they can kill it with Prismari Command, but once they go for something, they don't have time if you Graph Digger's Cage.
They put it on the stack and you're like, well, Graph Digger's Cage. And they're like, all right, blew up your treasure, your dwarf, whatever, and nothing else.
Right. So there's another creative way to attack it. I don't know if, it's hard to say how well it works because she never got the opportunity to play against Jeskai turns. She just beat the crap out of Visit Phoenix all day.
Yeah.
But I think there are ways to fight it, and we should not react to this deck in particular right now. That being said, if they banned all extra turn cards, I would just be totally fine with that. Like, just stop making these. They're not used in the way that you think they're going to. Like, the casual players or whatever look at them and like, this is cool. Like, yeah, I get to get a planeswalker, take an extra turn, and get another activation. It's always looping and taking all of the turns.
Yeah.
It's always how it ends up getting used.
So I don't hate extra turn cards because if you don't know how to play with them, they're horrible. They're like...
Yeah, but the problem is somebody else tells everyone how to play with them. Like, they build a deck, and then everyone has this stupid deck that takes all of the...
Yeah, I mean, I think the card where it's like, oh, go and get the 5-mana one that is the perfect one for this. Any of the extra turn spells that cost, like, 9 or something are like, sure, you know, I don't...
It's just like they've learned so much about them.
Yeah.
Look at Alrund's Epiphany. That's a fine example. It's sorcery, it's expensive as hell, and it exiles itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they need to be like. Time Warp not exiling itself is dumb.
Yeah. Well, the Nexus of Fate, we saw that was a fucking problem because it didn't exile itself. They should do
not only did it not exile itself, it put itself
back into your deck so you can keep... And that was also a card that wasn't even in the set. It was just a fucking card that you got from the box. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that stuff.
Yeah, everyone knew that was dumb except Wizards. I guess.
Well, no, they knew it was good because then people would fucking buy boxes. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to get into that. That's what, you know, it doesn't matter to us on Arena. You don't have to buy boxes to get those cards. You can just craft them.
Yeah, because it was banned. There was a weird time when it was banned in best of 1, but
and
not
best
of 3, or vice versa. I forget.
So weird. Anyway, we might at some point talk about those kinds of possible things. But yeah, as far as extra turns go, I do think that obviously, whoever makes extra turn cards just always looks back at Time Warp and be like, well, it has to be at least more than 2. So it can't be this one. Fucking hell. I can't believe... How would you even make a card that costs 2 mana and takes an extra turn? Like, how'd you...
Yeah. I mean, you have to remember, when this game was invented, it was supposed to be like, you just buy 12 packs and you make your deck out of what you have. And, like, maybe one guy has Time Walk, but he certainly has no way of making it play it every turn.
Yeah, but also when the equivalent of that card is, like, Grizzly Bears, like... How do you just decide?
Yeah, I mean, it's the ancestral recall cycle, right?
Yeah, it's just like...
Really? Healing Salve? What the fuck?
How did you think that this was equal to this? It's not even close.
But he didn't, though, because
Richard Garfield?
Ancestral Recall was, like, really rare, and Healing Salve was common. It was everywhere. So he knew that, like, it was just a cycle in the sense that every color gets 1 mana thing, and it has to do with 3.
But one was hard to find, and one wasn't hard to find. That's exactly. I mean, sure. That
so
makes
I think
sense.
the idea was you had the giant growth and the Healing Salve, and then holy shit, you see the blue one, and it's super rare, and you've never seen that before, and you're like, this one's so good.
Okay, I get that, and you can call back to the ones that you've already seen, and like you want that as fans so that people see. Okay, that makes sense. But
yeah, because like,
and I understand that he didn't know the game was going to be so huge and all that stuff, but it is fucking crazy sometimes. And so Time Warp feels like one of those cards to me where it's like, this was made a long time ago. It's iconic, so we should bring it back, which is true. I don't know. I personally right now don't feel like bans are needed, but obviously there are going to be people crying for bandwagon.
Give it more time. Like, they just have the next few months to just collect data.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think is the biggest thing that we haven't mentioned yet. Okay, you look at Jeskai Turns, it had a crazy win rate. Now let's look at the players that brought Jeskai Turns to this event. We're talking all of, like, everyone who brought this deck was MPL or rivals or friends with them and is one of the best players in the world. So, okay, is this the deck being amazing, or just the fact that the team that brought it were like almost entirely made up of extremely good players?
Yeah.
You know?
That's a good point. I think that's a really good point, because the deck, like I was saying before, is super complicated, and there's a bunch of different things you could do. And
exactly,
PV put an article out on Star City Games that was talking about all the different ways that this deck works, and it does seem after reading and looking and watching and all these things, I feel like I could pick it up and like try, but no way would I ever register this deck.
Definitely make some mistakes, though.
There is no way I'm going to register this deck for a tournament. I am not confident in the slightest that I'm going to be good enough to be able to play this deck. Absolutely not.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, that even applies to Brainstorm itself.
Oh god.
Like, yeah, the pro players love Brainstorm because Brainstorm is a hugely decision-intensive card.
Mm-hmm.
When to play it, because it's instant speed and only 1 mana. You draw 3 cards and then you put 2 back, so you're looking at ostensibly like 8 or 9 cards and choosing which 2 need to go back on top of your deck. And then you need to decide, let's say I have a Fabled Passage, when am I supposed to shuffle them away? You know, am I supposed to wait for my Fabled Passage to use my Brainstorm? You know, like, it is one of the... You could write a book about how to play Brainstorm.
It's so hard. Because, like, also, what are the times... There are many times where, like, players would have Velomachus in their hand or the 2 copies of Velomachus in their hand, and they don't Brainstorm them away. And I'm like, why?
Right.
Why didn't you do that?
And then, like, later in the game, you see them use that Brainstorm to put a Time Warp on the top to hit with the Velomachus. You're like, how did you know that it was going to come?
Yeah, it's just because they're like, oh, well, it's getting to the point where I can play my Velomachus. I have 9 mana, so I can play Velomachus with Memory Lapse up. It's just crazy. Like, that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, if I have both of the only targets for this one card in my deck that my deck's supposed to do, wouldn't I want that in the deck? And then they're like, no. I'm like, I don't get this deck. It's, again, some Jeskai deck I don't get. I don't know. I'm not fucking touching that thing. I'll play it at the All Access or whatever, but I'm not crafting anything for this.
So a very real possibility is that this tournament and competitive plays is Brainstorm everywhere, and this deck's, you know, too good. And then on the ladder, you see its win rate is
trash, like absolute trash.
And you know, people won't even play it because
it's just going to be a bunch of people like me trying to play this deck and fucking just tanking.
And then there's just no problem. Like, you don't have to ban, especially if now you're going the casual route anyways.
Exactly.
Why are we banning cards from Historic that the pros are good with,
but nobody else? I think that's okay. I don't know if you can try and convince me of anything, but sure. Brainstorm. Nothing needs to get banned at the moment. If anything, it might be Time Warp, but yeah, I'm good for that.
Yeah, Time Warp should just go because whatever. Who likes that card?
I mean, I like it.
Other than Zach.
I'm fine with it. I don't.
But Zach likes auras. So he's a Boggles kind of guy. You know?
All right. First of all, there are no Boggles on Arena, so you cannot call it Boggles. Second, it's not Boggles. I'm just kidding. Well, I think we had a couple other things to talk about, but I feel like I'm getting really low on my beer, so maybe we should save some of that for the future. Yeah,
same. I guess, let's just do closing thoughts on the whole Mystical Archive. Should they ban it all?
I think that's pretty good. I started this conversation thinking we should ban or think about banning a couple, and then all the other ones are fine. And I'm ending it with, not yet. Let's not do it. Let's
just take some time and get the ladder data, because I think that speaks more to what's important, right?
Yeah.
You know. And the other thing is, if you want it to be a Brainstorm format, make it a Brainstorm format. You know, I think people get too focused on, all right, this card's the best card, we got to ban it. It's like, well, there's always going to be a best card. Maybe we just want this to be the best card.
Yeah, you're never going to have these are the 7 best cards. They're all equal power level, so they're fine.
That's right.
There's always going to be one that's a little bit better or whatever, and things come out, and that's just how games are.
I'll remind you that not too long ago, a lot of these people crying for a Brainstorm ban were crying for a Thoughtseize ban.
Mm-hmm.
And then they released a card that,
helps.
Gives you some blue decks some ways to fight Thoughtseize, and what the hell is this? It even counters Thoughtseize. Let's ban Brainstorm.
Yeah, it's like, what?
You guys just hate whatever's the best, right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it is hard because there is a fine line between broken and the best, right?
Yeah, Uro, I'm fine with that not being a thing anymore, because it just means it's the type of card that, all right, this is all you can be doing if you're interested in this type of game plan at all. Brainstorm goes in a lot of decks, but it's, specific decks. It's decks that aren't interested in card advantage and are more looking for shaping their hand.
Yeah, shaping.
Like combo decks and Phoenix.
It's also one of those cards that you can look at as a new player and be like, okay, that seems good. And then you start playing with it, you're like, holy shit, this is so hard. The first time you Brainstorm lock yourself, you're like, oh fuck, this card's hard to play with.
Yeah, or maybe you just say that you got unlucky and your opponent got super lucky.
I mean,
that's also
okay, sorry, you could be that kind of person if you're someone who plays like me, where I'm like, oh shit, how do I do that? Is this really the best card? This card sucks, or it's hard. Like that's basically. I was like, how is this a good card? I don't know how to use this. This is not intuitive. Can I have another Colossal Dreadmaw, please? That's what I want.
Yeah, and then your opponent beats you with Brainstorm. You're like, holy crap, that card is good.
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong?
You Thoughtseize, look at a hand, all of lands. What the fuck? What happened here? But anyway, so that is what we think about everyone talking about bans like it's a fucking, I don't know, craziness. But it is good to sit down and have a discussion because, like, otherwise I would have been like, yeah, these are the 5 cards we might try to ban. And now I'm like, don't ban any of them. They're fine.
Let's just, like, release the Mystical Kennels or something that has a whole bunch of really fucking good black and green creatures. You're going to do the Mystical Archives with all these awesome blue and red spells. Give me the Mystical Kennels with black and green creatures. And let's see, let's see if that can help turn the tide a bit.
Yeah, let's get some dredge up in here.
That's right, yes. Let's get some fucking, like, I don't know, Tarmogoyfs or something. Is that even good these days? By
Who knows? Who knows? If Faithless Looting is doing well, maybe Tarmogoyf is doing well as well. Who knows?
Yeah. I have one last thought
classic,
on Jeskai.
Classic
Jeskai
Jeff's
turns.
last thoughts. So this is a new segment. Right before we go to a beer break, Jeff has his last thoughts.
Jeff's last thoughts.
All right.
I'm just going to say, this Jeskai Turns deck never would have been a problem if you just left Teferi Time Raveler in the format. Just saying.
Wow. What is that?
You could hate on Teferi Time Raveler all you want, but he would have had none of this going on.
I mean, you're right. And that, whatever. Anyway, I'm not going to touch that, but I do need another beer. So,
what's worse, guys? What's worse?
Yeah. I think it's the last call. So let's grab another beer before the bar closes down. Cool. You ready for this reveal?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. I picked my beer. I'm ready for it. All right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey!
All right. You take the victory on this one.
All right. Ooh, it's a good week for me. 2 victories. All right. So
no, didn't we agree about the 20-point bonus?
No, we don't. No, we're tied now in fantasy. Why do you keep doing? No, I won. I
want a do-over.
Yeah. Well, okay, we're gonna do one in July. There you go.
Let's draft new teams for that event.
Oh yeah. Draft teams again. I'll go first. Anyway, so we both picked the. I was gonna say drew. We both drew. We both picked Tropicana. That's the citrus IPA from Heavy Seas Brewing Company.
Correct.
Though I will have to say it was pretty close.
Yes. Yeah, I would say it was also very close for me, but not like they were both really good, kind of.
Oh yeah, no. Sorry, they were both on the same plane. Okay, but I think this one smells better, and that's why I picked it.
It does smell a bit better, yeah. The other one doesn't smell like anything.
Yeah, but I don't even know. I haven't even really thought about this.
Well, where do you want to start? Let's start with the one we both picked, the Citrus IPA.
Perfect. So Citrus IPA smells quite nice. It has a good, like, kind of citrusy, there's like some orange in there. Tropicana smell, I'd say. As far as the taste goes, it's not like blasting you with citrus, but it's kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this one has that kind of coffee thing going on where it, like, tastes different, like, tastes better than it, or smells better than it tastes.
Yeah.
And I love coffee, but it does smell better than it tastes.
Mm-hmm.
Tastes great, it smells even better. But this is like, it smells really good, and then when I drink it, I feel like I let down a bit because the smell, as I'm bringing the cup up to my mouth, I'm getting this anticipation, because you do smell the, like, lemon and the orange and the grapefruit, and then you taste it, it's like, it just falls a bit flat for me because of that,
Mm-hmm.
where the taste just doesn't really have, some, but not a lot of that.
Yeah, I actually agree with everything that you said. That's exactly what I thought when I opened it up first. I was like, ooh, this smells great. I'm so excited. And I tasted it. I'm like, oh, okay. But at least it makes up for it in being high in alcohol. So maybe the second one will taste
and it doesn't taste bad or anything.
No.
It just kind of tastes like, just tastes like an ale kind of thing. But it does actually taste a bit flat to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just missing something.
It's definitely missing something. I think the redeeming quality is that it's high in alcohol, like I said. So it is telling me to forget about it. Hey, just forget about it. Drink another one.
It doesn't taste like it's high in alcohol.
No.
So.
No, I can definitely feel it, though, obviously.
If that's the kind of thing you're looking for, like some people are looking for the opposite, big flavor, low alcohol content. Some people are looking for big alcohol content, but it doesn't taste like it has a large alcohol content. Well, this is the kind of thing you might be interested in. But I would say there are better options on the market if that's what you're looking for.
I'm going to say that they did a really great job of making this pirate beer from Heavy Seas, Tropicana. It feels like it's pirates, and pirates are looking for gold. So this is going straight into gold.
I knew where you were going with that as soon as you said it, and I love it. I was just going to say, it's gold.
It's gold.
But you took us on a little journey there.
There you go. This pirate beer is definitely gold. And while we both picked it, that also kind of leads you to believe that the 10 Mile Point Pilsner from Manitoulin is on a similar footing.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't fair of me to, put all their hopes and dreams on this one, because they're obviously listening to this as soon as it airs, going, oh, what did we get? What did we get? Because Pilsners, I'm not a big Pilsner guy.
You're not a big Pilsner guy? Just kidding.
I know, right?
I'm a really big Pilsner guy. I love Pilsen. I don't know if you watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Pills, yeah.
In Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
He's also just the most boring person in the world. That character makes so much sense to me because I think Pilsners are so boring.
Yeah, it's the guy that Amy dates who's like the cop who just loves Pilsners, and that's all he talks about. So anyway.
Yeah, but he's also really boring.
Yeah, he's super boring. And Pilsners are also kind of boring.
I think Pilsners are the kind of beer that have their super fans, like the people who love Pilsners have them, love them. Sorry. And for me, it just, honestly, I'm not confident I could pick this out of a blind taste test versus a random macro brew,
Really? I could definitely, if it was a bunch of macro brews and then this one, I'd probably be able to pick it. I thought it was nice. I liked it. But I feel like I've had better Pilsners than this. I could easily, I don't know, man. It's definitely, I'm going to say gold just because obviously I picked the other one over this. But in actuality, I could easily pick this one up earlier than I'll pick up the Tropicana, which is funny. If I was ever going to go back and
that's fair, right?
Get beers
that's
again.
just the style preference, if you want a IPA or if you just want a Pilsner.
There's just so many more IPAs I could pick as opposed to this one. Where Pilsners, there aren't as many, and this is a totally fine one, and the other ones aren't going to be such a big difference that I'll care. Not that I don't like Pilsners, hey, there are definitely mythic Pilsners out there, but I don't think this is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I hate to do this, but, if I'm just looking at the definition, which we forgot to read again.
Oh.
But silver is a macro brew, or you feel like it has nothing really going on, and that's just how I felt about this one, so I gotta give it silver.
Hey, is that your first silver you're giving out?
I think it's my first silver. Yeah.
I actually enjoyed this one. I think more than I was actually pretty close to picking this Pilsner, so I think I do regard it higher than you do. So that's why I'm giving it gold. But all right, okay, I see you. I'm just
yeah. I mean, like I said, part of that is that I don't know if I have the Pilsner palate, as they say, where I can really distinguish.
For sure.
To me, it's just boring, and I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to be boring, and this is a great rendition of a really boring beer. But for me, that's silver.
All right, so there you have it. Those are the beers. We are coming to... Actually, sorry, Jeff, do you have any last thoughts before we go to that?
Many, actually. So point number one, yeah.
So I think we're going to closing time, which is happening right now. Sorry. I feel like, man... I
threw you off by not singing the song.
You threw me off by not singing the song, and also I started with the 7% beer, so now I'm feeling all of it hit me. But anyway, it is closing time. If you would like to reach us and talk to us about our rating system or citrus IPAs that we should try, or Pilsners, let's say that. If there are Pilsners that you think are mythic and you want us to try them, you can always reach us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, and you're welcome to even, send us some Pilsners, and
That's true.
If you think they're really good.
Slide into our DMs and maybe you'll get an address.
Yeah, you could also find us on MTG Arena under the username Arena Regulars Podcasts. We might be milling you out with some ruined crabs. I've been doing a bit of that recently, so apologize if that happened to you. But, you know what? I actually don't apologize.
I was going to say, why would you?
That was awesome.
Yeah, don't apologize about ruined crab. Ruined crab's great.
But I apologize if I gave you the premature good game.
Oh,
that
yes.
would have been
that's
acceptable.
That's yeah.
Like the old good game drop fabled passage mill you for 12.
Oh God! You can always reach me at my personal things at Zulberg, which is ZEULBERG on Twitter and Instagram. But Jeff, where can they find you?
You can find me at Blues Brews MTG on Twitter, and it's spelled like it sounds.
Yep. And please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify, Stitcher, Anchor, and anywhere you are listening to us right now. Also, it would be awesome if you subscribed to our YouTube channel, leave us a like or a comment on some of our videos. We really love all those things. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that historic is a steam vents world, and we're just living in it.
Good night. All right, that's fine.